What's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome to the first daily show of the Bleed Blue Network. I am your host, Paul, and I am, I don't know, I'm very disorganized on Monday morning. Been doing 16 other things, I feel like. And yeah, so yes, I have another mic. Okay, good. The mic is muted, so the other one is, and that's good. There's just so much going on. It's Monday. It's Monday for a lot of you guys as well. So um lots to talk about. A lot happened in the game, obviously, this Saturday. I really don't want to talk about it, but we have to. And yeah, so obviously, this was it's been a rough. It's been a rough few weeks as a football fan, especially a Kentucky football fan. There's not been a lot to cheer about, after so much promise and beating Ole Miss. And I think that the fan base was super excited and feeling that there was a lot that we could, accomplish and potentially, make a run at a serious bowl game, maybe even make an outside run of the playoffs. I know, the players that always thought that that was something that they had, especially when you look at what happened against Georgia, and how close we were to beating them, and then also, beating Ole Miss, and then somehow the wheels have just absolutely fallen off. The inability for Kentucky to score is very much, I think, a little bit of a shock for everyone. I think it's a shock for. I mean, I think it's a big shock for the fans. I don't know. Obviously, the coaching staff, maybe they aren't as surprised. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to have this much of an issue. The play calling, especially on the offensive side of the ball, has been. I mean, I don't even know if there's a nice way to put how the play calling has been on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, atrocious is pretty much the way it is. I mean, I don't know how many times we're going to run a QB draw. I think we run probably the most QB draws of any team in the nation. I think I don't understand why we abandoned things so fast. It felt like we ran the ball pretty decent on the first couple of runs, and then all of a sudden just got away from it, got real pass happy. It wasn't like Auburn was not, we weren't not getting yards, and obviously if we were, Dane Key had a really strong start to the game, and then we just, faded completely in the passing game. The defense clearly either was exhausted or kind of gave up or something. I don't know. But it's not a very good situation for the football program right now. That is for sure. Stoops was supposed to have it. Obviously, this is his news conference day. He's not having it himself. Brad White's doing it. I believe Stoops is out of town for the funeral. Obviously, he lost his mother, so no matter what happens on the football field, we know that it's a very hard thing in the Stoops family. Anytime you lose a parent or a relative or a loved one, so our thoughts and prayers do go out to the Stoops family. In regards to that, because we're fans, but also there's life, and life is unfortunately not. It's unfortunate that their family's going through that right now. But as a fan base, I'm trying to figure out. I want to be semi-professional in addressing this, but I think the mindset of how Kentucky football fans are viewing this is a little bit hopeless. We see massive regression, and look, the crazy thing is the Kentucky. There's 4 games Kentucky probably, arguably, at least 3 we should have won. One that I think we just played like crap. And if you look at like the 3 there, I'm talking about Vandy, Auburn, and even Georgia. Florida, I don't know what really happened. You win a couple of those others. I think it's probably a completely different ball game. But this season, and just Kentucky in general, right? The margins are so narrow, and whether that's down to the new landscape of college football, whether that's down to coaching. It's probably a lot. It's probably a mixture of all of it, right? It's probably a mixture of coaching, probably a mixture of the landscape that college football is in. It's, it's a lot more competitive across the board. Different teams have different access, different accesses to players, and some players are not just going to big schools because they are going to places like, Boise State and some of the power, or the group of 5 schools, because they go and they get playing time as a freshman, and they can transfer to just about any school they want. The NIL game has changed a lot of stuff, and maybe you're not seeing some of the fringe players, going to places like Kentucky. I don't know. I don't know. I think that this is something that's going to take a while to kind of think and learn through. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's the coach is going to be the person who everything falls on, but at the end of the day, there's not a lot we're going to be able to do about that. We have a man, like, I could get on a soapbox today. I think one of the biggest things when we're talking about Kentucky athletics and where we are as a program, and I think you take everything out, you need to have a serious look and conversation with Mitch Barnhart. He's been here for 22 years. He's overseen 2 absolute horrid hires in the 2 major sports. And we are now on 2 contracts that look, and this is, I'm going to take this caveat out. It has nothing to do with firing a coach, right? Let's take all this out. It's the ability for accountability in your staff. And what Mitch Barnhart has done in the last 2 contracts has made it to where it doesn't matter about performance because we can't do anything, right? There's no urgency. It doesn't seem like that anyway. You saw that with Cal. You're seeing that maybe now with the football program. When you are in a job and your job has standards, or you could lose it, you can perform differently. There's a different level of concentration. I don't know all these things. I know a little bit. I'm not going to pretend I know all these things. Throw that out the window. But Mitch Barnhart hiring Billy Gillispie and Joker Phillips put basketball in a very bad position, and then also put football in a massively bad position. I mean, he set football back 5 or 6 years. That's the danger of where we're at right now, of not being set back. It's why I don't believe in don't show up. It's why I don't believe in emptying the stands. Like, I'm not trying to have UK football have a hard reset for the next 5 years. We don't need that. All right. I think the honest question would be, would you rather have 5 to 7 years where we suck, but Mark Stoops is gone? Or would you rather, if Mark Stoops is going to stay around, you're in that 6-6, 8-4 range for the next 2 years, but you only have maybe a year or 2 setback? I think that's an honest question for the fan base to really ask itself. And I think that the big thing here that we have to really talk about is, why are we allowing an athletic director who was slow to the draw on NIL, who, I mean, whether or not you want to talk about alcohol sales or anything, we were one of the last ones there, which is it's a revenue producer. Would no matter how you spin that, it's it's not the be all end all, but it's a trend, right? How is Mitch Barnhart not being held accountable? How are we not talking about Mitch Barnhart right now, more so than we're even talking about Mark Stoops? Obviously Mark Stoops leads the team, but at the same time, like, we've got to have that conversation of, why are we allowing a man to continuously put UK athletics in a bad position, especially in the 2 major revenue driving sports that drive the fan base, right? Like, no offense to other sports, if they lose, we care, but it's not going to cause people to basically go into, like, panic or ruin their day and ruin their weekend and things like that. But Mitch Barnhart has to be held accountable for the aspect that he has allowed the 2 major programs to have no flexibility over the coach and how they perform and what they do. Kentucky basically got bailed out on it, and everyone forgets this because Mark Pope's come in and he's done an incredible. Look, Mark Pope, I'll raise my hand. It was not my first choice. I wasn't thrilled about it. A lot of people weren't. There's a lot of information out there that maybe wasn't necessarily true when the hire was going on, but he was our fourth or fifth choice down the line of coaches that we were looking for. But Mark Pope has won the PR battle. He has come in here. He has won the fan base over, which is amazing. But that wouldn't have happened if Cal didn't leave, right? A lot of people seem to forget that little stunt that they did on, I don't know if it was LEX 18 or something like that, where Mitch sat down with Cal and they had that kumbaya supposed moment, and it wasn't a kumbaya moment. It was very awkward, and Cal was going to stay. And then, a week or so later, Cal's gone to Arkansas. Now we're in another situation where Mark Stoops is a $44 million buyout. Whether you like Mark Stoops, whether you hate Mark Stoops, doesn't matter. Throw all that out the window. It's the ability for Kentucky to have accountability and to be able to sit down at the end of the season and say, hey, we're not going in this direction. You have to make these changes. And Kentucky really can't do that. And I'm not saying Mark Stoops is a bad person. I'm not saying he's going to hold the school at ransom from that perspective. What I'm basically saying from this perspective is Kentucky from the top down is not allowed to put pressure on their coach. There's no way Kentucky is going to spend a $44 million buyout. Now, could Mark Stoops come at the end of the season and say, hey, listen, I don't want this to go sideways. Let's negotiate something more reasonable and renegotiate? Sure, absolutely, that can happen. But the fundamental aspect of where we are right now is going to be where we are. And then, I've never understood Mark Stoops and what he does with the media. I've basically, I've said this many times. I've said this to people. I think Mark needs to do a better job of PR, like getting there and saying, I don't know what to say, rinse and repeat, same old thing. Like the fans don't want to hear that. Mark has put pressure on himself by things he says. And yes, I do believe that a lot of people are looking for things in sound bites and sometimes they take things out of context, but you're giving it to them. You're giving the sound bites to them because you're not just coming out and saying the things. It's crazy. So Jaden is actually at the press conference right now. He's kind of giving me updates. Apparently Brad White said, if you're a mentally tough football team, the only thing that matters is the next series. It doesn't matter the field position. And he talks about taking it as a challenge no matter how they got on the field, and good defenses don't worry about stuff like that. Felt like he was talking to the team there. I have no clue what he's talking about. On UT, he said, you have another opportunity and challenge to prove yourself after getting embarrassed. I mean, we've been embarrassed for 3 straight weeks now. So, I mean, I think the biggest frustration is Kentucky's got a lot of coach speak. Cal, I think, handled things completely different because it was basically like kind of taking the media and fans and kind of throwing them under the bus and not caring. I think this is a different. I think we're just having coach speak to have coach speak. But I think there's a lot of people, and now Bush Hampton's there. That's going to be interesting. Gonna see if we can get a QB situation. Sorry, just gonna send a text. If you guys that are watching live, if you want, you can jump in on the text updates. 859-412-2090 on the starting QB. He says, evaluating anything and want to talk. They are evaluating everything and want to talk to them face to face. Both of them are aware they'd split time this week, specifically avoided saying yes to the question, is Brock the starter? I don't like this. I don't like this. I've never liked the 2 QB situation that we've been doing. I don't like how I feel like it I would rather you have Brock or Wimsatt start, give them 3 drives, and if they do well, okay, keep them in. If not, then switch and give them 3 drives. You gotta allow some rhythm to be going. But like, I don't understand with Wimsatt. We're struggling in the passing game already to move the ball, and you got a guy who was in Division I. Like, look, the guy has experience and everything, but he had a pretty poor completion percentage. What are we going to do in moving the ball going against one of the best defenses in the country? Now, do I think Kentucky's defense, if they're healthy, if they're not completely obliterated and banged up, could compete against Tennessee defensively? Yes. Tennessee offensively, I think they're marginally better than what Kentucky's been, but that's obviously marginally better wins more football games because they actually have a better record and their defense is very good. On the inefficiency of the goal line, Bush Hampton said they need to throw the ball more because running down their throat is not effective currently. I don't know. Stop changing the running backs. I mean, why does he change RB so often then when plays are working? I kind of wish I was at this press conference because I think I'd probably get in trouble by the questions I'd ask because it's kind of infuriating. But anyway, that's beside the point. So Kentucky obviously now, a bowl game doesn't look likely. I mean, you've got two probably winnable games for sure. You know, obviously Murray State, Louisville. I don't care what their record is and everything like that. I don't think Louisville's very good. Sure, I think they can beat us, but I don't think they're very good still. You got to beat Tennessee or Texas on the road now to get bowl eligible. That just seems highly unlikely. And I think for a lot of people, a 4-8, 5-7 season with the talent that we have, like whether we overhype the talent or not, this has not been a season that anyone expected, especially after what you do in back-to-back weeks against Georgia and Ole Miss. Maybe Ole Miss isn't as good as we thought. I think they've gotten pushed a little bit. You know, when we played them, they hadn't played anybody. We kind of called that out. We punched them in the mouth. We won the game. I don't understand why we don't throw the ball and target deep more. We've actually had success on deep passes. I think it's the one thing Kentucky's actually done well with getting either PI or actually completing it or putting players in position to make competitive catches. Dane Key's been very good on things like that. He's been very reliable. I don't know why we're not targeting Macklin. I mean, it seems like Barryon's almost non-existent. He's the most explosive player probably on the team that we have that can be able to break plays, especially out in space. We're getting him the ball, nothing. We put him in a jet sweep. I mean, why are we not getting Barryon Brown the ball more? Why are we not getting Jamori Macklin the ball more? Why are we not drawing up plays underneath for the tight ends? Like everything there makes absolutely no sense on the play calling. Like Scangerillo almost seems better than what we had. I think we average more points with Scangerillo, to be honest with you. And look, this has got to come down to Mark because we have not, for some reason, been able to figure out the offensive situation. I know Mark wants to say you want to run the ball and all this stuff. That's great, but guess what? In the SEC, you got to be able to score. If you can't put up 30 points a game, you're not going to win a lot of football anymore in the SEC. There's good defenses, but look, you even look at Alabama, you look at even Tennessee to an extent, you look at Georgia, Texas, these teams, like they have good defenses, but it's their ability for their offense to be able to go and create explosive plays and put pressure on the opposing team's defense. Like it's great if you have a top 5 defense, and Kentucky's had that, but look at Iowa. I mean, Iowa is like the model that I feel like we've been kind of going down, except Iowa's defense, they don't play, elite teams. Iowa's defense has been done really well. But their offense has been crap for years. And sure, they sometimes win a lot of games, but that model in the SEC, I think, is very doomed to fail. Like you're not going to win a ton of games in the SEC when you have an offense that, like, there's no, like, I feel like we either try and throw deep, we try and throw under, and you don't have, like, where's the crossing routes? Where's the 3 levels of passing that we could have? When we go 4 wide receiver set or even 3 wide receiver set with a running back, why are we not having the running back leak out as a safety valve? We have an underneath pass, a mid-range pass, and a deep threat. Like, why do we not do that? Or if you're sending Barryon and Dane Key deep, why do you not have Jamori coming through the middle of the field with an underneath tight end or running back? Like, there's so many different play variations. And I mean, half you guys play NCAA 25 and you can see we're basically running it feels like we're either running an all go or we're running like 5-yard, 10-yard outs. Like there's no creativity on this. We run that stupid jet motion. No one's falling for that anymore. We barely hand it off. When we do, it doesn't really do anything. When we do hand up and run the ball, it seems like we have success and then we just stop. I don't understand anything that's happening on the offensive side of the ball. You're probably staring down another offensive coordinator at the end of the season. I mean, I don't see how if we go 4-8 with this piss poor kind of offense that Bush Hampton stays. I mean, if you look at Boise State, he left, they got better. I really liked what he was talking about in his offense and how they were talking about doing things. The execution of it's been terrible. I think Mark I mean, look, Mark Stoops is going to be here next year. Like Mark Stoops doesn't want to be here. So I even posted this. Mark has to make some big philosophical changes going into next season. Period. Like, we need to overhaul the staff. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be, like, if Mark's going to be here, he's got to turn the staff over. Like, I get it. Brad White, we've had some good defenses. Maybe it's time to move on from Brad White. Maybe this has been a staple of a Brad White defense. Really good in the first 5 games. Really starts to fade as the season goes on. Is it due to depth? Is it due to the fact that we're not recruiting enough players? Is Brad White too stingy on who he recruits and how he recruits? Does it make it to where that we don't have the bodies? Is it how we practice? Is it too physical early in the season? So where's the bodies at? None of it makes sense because other teams aren't wearing down like we are. Like, you see it and there's some attrition, but we don't have that. Now, that could be due to depth. In fact, Kentucky doesn't have, 55-star players. That's possible. I mean, but at the end of the day, even look at like Clemson in the bowl game last year and how we lost. It was due to terrible defensive play calling. And I think the thing that has made outside of Ole Miss, it's been play not to lose, it feels like. And yeah, our front 7 have been playing really good, and then it didn't play worth a crap against Auburn, especially late in the game. And I can hear all this, the defense, the offense, whatever, but guess what? Great defenses stop the ball. They get it done. And if you can do that to Georgia, you should be able to do that to Auburn. I mean, that's just, Auburn was 2-5. I think there's a lot of aspects to things as well. I think from a fan standpoint, obviously they've done a really good job showing up. I don't believe in the calls. Like I said earlier, I don't believe in the calls not to show up. I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think that as a fan base, look, Auburn showed up and Auburn's fans really showed up this week. I think that's something to learn from. Somebody say, oh, well, they won a national championship. Well, guess what? Do the job before you have the job. I think Kentucky as a fan base, I think there's more pressure if you show up because it shows that the fans care more than if you just check out. That's just my perception. And that's my analysis on kind of how that is. But, maybe that's not the right one. I don't know. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. I think everybody probably has an opinion and they're probably all valid when it comes to that. But obviously we have Tennessee. This is the highest point spread, I think, in a Tennessee game in over a decade. Mark Stoops is now, I think, the only coach in Kentucky football history to have 2 non-winning SEC seasons at home. Not good. Not good. There's a very good chance we only win 1 SEC game, finish dead last in the conference. I don't think anybody was thinking about that. And if you lose to Louisville, I think if you think that it's bad now, I think losing to Louisville, like, that's the only thing. Like, this is the thing, right? Like, someone like Bush Hamden says Patterson Wilcox did a relatively good job, but was hesitant and noted their protection needs work. Hand him the freaking ball then. Guess what? We're not putting our quarterback. If we're running the ball for 5 or 6 yards a pop, guess what? When you do play actions, a lot easier to protect the quarterback. Those are the things I just don't understand. Sometimes I feel like coaches just overthink. I don't even know. I don't think anybody's confident about the game this weekend. I think everyone fully expects Kentucky to get embarrassed on national TV. Tennessee's wearing their all black uniforms again. Now this I do believe, says Bush says Brock's progressions are improving with time, especially in the passing situations, but sometimes gets locked onto receivers in big moments. Look, at the end of the day, Brock Vandagriff could be the most talented quarterback Kentucky's had in 20 years, potentially, but he's only started how many games, and we pull him every freaking 5th or 6th play to put Gavin Wimsatt in to just run the ball. I don't understand that. Like, if we were running the ball when we put Gavin in and we were getting 10, 15 yards a play because it was working so well, great. But when we do that, we're not scoring. It's not like it's working astronomically well for us to just pull. Like, go with a quarterback or don't go with a quarterback. Like, this 2 system just doesn't work. And again, this is offensive coaching, but it's also Stoops. If I was Mark, I'd walk into the office. I'd walk into Bush Hampton's office and I'd be like, listen, two things. Number one, quarterbacks are playing. They're going to play series. We're not going to pull Brock for at least 4 or 5 series. If he struggles, we'll go with Gavin for 4 or 5 series. Period. The end of story. Plan it and make that happen. Doesn't happen. I think, for the fans that basically say, oh, Mark Stoops probably pulls too much of the offense. I think it's a philosophical thing that Mark Stoops has with hiring offensive coordinators, less so than Mark Stoops actually in-game kind of coaching when it comes to that. There are multiple plays where if you look at the headset and they were like going to Mark was like, what are we doing? What was that? Like you could see him mouthing. I don't know how many offensive coordinators this would make in 5 or 6 years. I mean, we're going to have to reset. I mean, there's no way we can keep. I mean, I don't think anybody would feel confident if Bush stays. I mean, I don't think we've scored more than 2 touchdowns in an SEC game yet this season. You're going to lose a lot of games from there. I mean, do you see Kentucky putting up more than 10 to 13 points against Tennessee this weekend? Nah, I don't. I don't think a lot of people do. We've gone down there and gotten blown out. We've gone down there and made some games really competitive. We didn't think we were going to make competitive. Crazier things can happen, I guess, but I don't think from a confidence level that's there. We haven't scored more than 20 points, I think, against any Power 4 team, which are only SEC teams right now. But I don't think we've scored. I mean, I think I'm pretty correct on that one. So I think 17s are high in the SEC. 17. It's freaking terrible. Like we've gotten down to the 1 yard line in multiple games, can't score, botch extra points. I mean, if we get down to even if we kick a field goal against Vandy, it's a different game. If we punch it in, game's tied. I mean, so on the bright side, basketball season is also upon us again. Kentucky plays basketball tomorrow. Another exhibition game. I guess exhibition game is the right way to put it. They are playing, I think it's Montana. Is it Montana State? I'm gonna pull this up. Sorry. Minnesota State. Started with an M. Don't know a lot about them. We'll talk more about them tomorrow, kind of previewing the last exhibition game before Kentucky takes the court for real and the games actually start to count. So obviously Minnesota State tomorrow at Rupp Arena, 7 p.m. tip-off. Going to be interesting to see if we see Kerr Kriisa. I think Kerr Kriisa is someone that the fans really want to see. I haven't heard if he's in or out. I think it's probably more of like a game time decision. I believe he is practicing. A lot of things are, yeah, do that. Sorry. I think if this was a regular season, I think Kerr Kriisa would be playing right now. I don't think that it's anything too terribly serious. So, boy, like I think I don't think this is going to happen, but my God, basketball needs to be good, or at least super competitive, because if we're not in that realm, it's going to be very, bad. Cole Kublik, is breaking down, I think, protections. I'm gonna share this on Twitter. And he's breaking down some film on the Kentucky game against Auburn, and it's not good. He says, "Don't do this to that kid." Not saying it was great or even good. So explain to this to me like I'm 6, because a 0.0 in my world would mean my assignment, knock the shit out of the quarterback on every pass play. To be fair, I don't know the grade scale, but I'm just saying. I think he's talking about the guard or the tackle, and I think somebody broke it down and said Kentucky 0 block rate. I don't know how they're doing that. He doesn't agree with it, but I just shared it. So if you want to go to Bleed B Network, on Twitter. You can see that from Cole Kublik. Depth chart for Tennessee is also out. Demi is listed as the starter. Again, no change. I mean, it doesn't look like there's a big change in anything here. Quarterback, it says Brock Vandagriff, Gavin Wimsatt, or Cutter Boley. That's the same. So there's not really a lot of difference here in the depth chart, which, I mean, that's a little surprising. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. They obviously the depth chart doesn't mean a diddly squat when it comes to anything. But I'd like to see him. Anyway, we were talking about basketball. Sorry, I got off topic. I saw a football tweet and just got it. So obviously Kentucky won 123-52 in their first exhibition game. We've talked about it a little bit. Things I think we'd like to see. It's hard when you say things you'd like to see and see them work on for the next exhibition game, because everything went so freaking well. I mean, 123 points. I think maybe just starting a little bit crisper. I know they really poured it on. They didn't shoot specifically well in the first half. They did a really good job in the second half. Again, if we shoot 50% for three, I don't think we're gonna really care. I think we're nitpicking a little bit. But that is neither here nor there, I guess. I mean, defensively, I think they had a few breakdowns where if it was a better team, they probably got exploited. So I think it's just little minor things to clean up. Probably won't know a whole lot, obviously, until they play more for real, play Wright State. Obviously, that'll be a little step up in competition. Bucknell, then Duke. Duke's what? I mean, 2 weeks away almost, I think we're 2 weeks away from Duke. 2 weeks tomorrow, which is kind of crazy to think about. The season's going to really start going from that perspective. You also, obviously Kentucky's women's basketball team. There's a lot of hype around the women's team right now. I think basketball has a chance to be very fun. I believe the women sold like a big, sold out their tickets allotment. They don't play again until November 4th. They play the same day that Kentucky's men's team plays. They obviously just play before that. They open the season against UC Upstate at Memorial. Tickets are still available for that game. So they play actually 2 games the very first week. They play the 4th and the 7th against Northern Kentucky, Wofford, and then their first big test is going to be against Louisville November 16th against at Memorial. It's a home game. And then they have some games against Arizona State, Illinois, North Carolina, Purdue, and then obviously the SEC slate. So I think people are very excited for the women's team, just like they're excited for the men's team. But they obviously don't have the exhibition games that the men do, so we're not talking about them as much. But obviously, we're going to cover and talk about them a lot more, kind of moving forward as things progress. I mean, it's crazy to think that we still have 4 more football games, and it feels like everyone's kind of checked out. I think it'll be good to have basketball. It'll be a nice transition and a nice break from the sadness. That's the only way. I felt it was so boring to watch. It was just so boring to watch. Anyway, so the big thing about Kentucky on the football side and them struggling and not making a bowl game is going to be the extra practice and things that I mean, that's a huge deal. Especially in college football, getting those extra weeks of practice and extra weeks of reps in. Now, obviously in the NIL era, you can bring players in that have experience, so it can be less, but Kentucky's not necessarily killing it. Killing it's different. They don't have the donor base that other schools do. Posted something on Twitter, actually, I believe it was yesterday. Kentucky, I think, is 11th or 12th in the SEC in NIL. And so that's a thing, right? Like that's a thing, especially when you've got places like Texas and Texas A&M that are in, well over 20 some million. Now, where things become very interesting with Kentucky is when revenue sharing kicks off, because there's going to be a cap when it comes to revenue sharing, and Kentucky will be they will be number one with several other schools, but they will be number one from that perspective. Does that change how competitive football is? Obviously, basketball is a little different of an animal because you don't have 52 guys or 80 some guys, whatever, and that kind of a perspective. But I think it's going to be interesting because Kentucky, with the revenue sharing, is going to be one of the powerhouses in the nation, not just in the SEC. And if you couple that with a collective like the 15 Club, who has a ton of relationships and they do a lot of really good jobs, with recruiting and people around the country to be able to bring talent in from all over. I think that could be a very interesting mix for UK football moving forward. Maybe it's a reason why, maybe that's a piece where, people might think, oh, Mark's going to leave, and maybe Mark sees that this is coming and he's like, well, this is going to give us a different opportunity. I don't know. We've seen crazier things happen in that world, but obviously Vanderbilt on the verge of going to a bowl game. I don't think anyone predicted that. I don't think anyone predicted Vandy might win 7 games, potentially 8. I think 7 is probably their cap looking at their schedule, but you never know. I mean, obviously they beat Alabama. They could probably beat anybody. Took Texas to the wire. So, there's a lot of pieces to that. It's crazy how Kentucky feels like we're in the situation all over again in another sport that everybody's, absolutely loved. And it'd be really nice not to be in that situation. Obviously, I think the students are not back for the basketball game tomorrow. The first crowd actually for the exhibition game was a little disappointing. I don't know what they ended up having the total. When it was not full. I mean, it was not full at all. I know one of the sections behind the basket, we maybe had a couple hundred people in it. I know it's an exhibition game. It doesn't matter from that perspective, but hopefully the crowd is. It said the crowd attendance was 18,000. I have a hard time believing there was 18,000 people there. I was there. I just don't think there was 18,000 people in the stands. Not that it matters. It's an exhibition game. I'm sure it's going to be full when they take on Wright State on the 4th. Some interesting conversation around basketball. Kind of talking about minutes when Kerr Kriisa comes back. People are asking, things about Travis Perry. Also, Colin Chandler and Trent Noah. My analysis, just kind of thinking and looking at it, is I don't think Travis Perry is going to play or Trent Noah is going to play a ton this season in the bigger games. I think they just have a lot more growth. I think shooting wise, obviously, I think they're both there, but obviously, from the defensive side of the game, I think they just need to get a little bit bigger and stronger to compete kind of at the higher levels. Obviously both of them can shoot lights out. And if they get open, they're going to make shots. But I think it's just the is there a liability on the defensive side of the court? Kerr Kriisa also is going to take a lot of those minutes. I think we kind of looked at it. Travis Perry played 14 minutes and Trent Noah played 9. So that's, almost 15 minutes. So that's what, 23 and a half, 24 minutes. You got to think Kerr's going to take most of those minutes up when games actually start to matter. Obviously he he's got a lot of experience playing at Arizona and West Virginia. So you would think that that's going to probably be a little bit of a shift. Lamont Butler and Jackson Robinson led the way in the first game with 25 minutes and 22 minutes. I think that's probably where, that's going to probably stay from that perspective. It's going to be interesting to see if Ainsley Almanor has another game just like he did last time. Obviously he had a very, very productive first game. I think he shot better than people thought. He had 5-7 from 3, 15 points. So I think that was probably something that, was surprising. And then jumping in here, we got Mr. Jaden. What's up, Jaden?
How you doing?
How's it going?
Doing good. I just scrambled through campus. There's tree trimming in my parking lot at my apartment, so that was kind of an event getting through, but we're here. It was
You were at the press conference.
Yep.
Obviously, Marks wasn't there because of the loss of his mother. But how did you kind of feel the vibe was, and was there any interesting exchanges with anybody?
So yeah, the coordinators handled the press conference today, starting with Brad White. He kind of seemed like he was challenging the defense. It kind of seemed like he was talking to the defense the entire time. He was saying a lot of talking about trying to fight and talking about trying to limit the run plays and trying to some of those big explosives that they gave up. Focusing more on Jarquez Hunter, I guess. After the Florida game, they talked about staying over top with the secondary a bunch, and they left themselves susceptible to giving up some of those big explosive run plays. I'm trying to pull up the things that I was texting you, like the notes that I was saying. Yeah. At one point, Brad White said, if you're mentally a tough football team, the only thing that matters is the next series. It doesn't matter the field position. He was talking about taking it as a challenge and being aggressive no matter where you are on the field or how they got on the field. That was in response to when they were talking about getting the ball off of a turnover and the offense not scoring, kind of the defense's mentality there. They talked about the defense playing football, winning football majority of the game, talking about specifically JQ Hardaway, but he talked about the whole defense there, but that they have a couple lapses a game. So Brad White was it sounded like he was challenging his team to put it all together for a whole game. And then Bush Hamden, like 4 people tried to talk every time he was,
sounds about right.
Question. Yeah, they had a lot of questions for him. They started off asking about the QB situation, asking if just straight up is Brock the starter, and then how that's going to go from there. And he did not say, yes, Brock is the starter. And that was the first question that he was asked. So I think that was important to note. He said that he had told them that they were going to kind of split time during the game, and that Gavin taking over for an extended period was not a surprise to either of them. And that Brock handled that fantastically, and that he's a great leader and all the things that you would expect him to say, and all the things that we have heard about Brock. Talked about the young guys needing more consistency, really, and that they showed flashes and stuff, but that they're still going to experiment and try to figure out what kind of players and what scheme is going to give them the best chance to score points against Tennessee, because not a lot of teams are doing that. So that was kind of the press conference. It wasn't anything, of note. Both of them seemed to be in, decent moods, but it kind of felt like they were talking to the team through us more than they were trying, giving us anything to work with or really note of importance, other than Brock is not specifically the starter, and they're looking at both options.
Did anybody mention anything about Cutter or anything like that, or is it just mainly Brock?
It was kind of mixed into a running back question. They just kind of mentioned young players in general, and he said, what you would expect him to say about all the young players. We'll continue to look at all of our options. If the offense continues to struggle, some of the younger guys will get more of an extended chance, like you saw last week. It was, more of a, if it doesn't get figured out, he's an option. But it was a base young guys in the offense. He didn't, single out Cutter specifically.
I mean, look, I would not go to Cutter in this game.
I would not go to Cutter either. I didn't like that they went to Cutter against Florida. I wouldn't go to Cutter at all this season.
I mean, look, in that situation, I don't think it's terrible because the game's already over. You just want to get him some reps. I think if you're going to go with Cutter, you're going to give him a look. I think you got to do it against Murray State and give him like
you better be getting blown out or blowing them out.
Yeah, well, look, if they would come out, I mean, because I think we have a bye week right after Tennessee. So they we're going to say, hey, we're going to make a change. We're going to go with Cutter. Cutter's going to start. We're going to see what he's got against Murray State. He's got 2 weeks to prepare. I think you could do that. And then you see.
I don't know.
I mean, if you're going to do it, you would do it then. You don't do it.
I don't think I don't think I'd ever start him though this year. I mean, the season, it's over.
I mean, that's the aspect of it. If the season's over, you can play him in 3 more games without burning his red shirt. would you not maybe give him a bigger run out against a team like Murray State and see what he's got? And if it's, maybe you don't start him at Texas, maybe you bring him back and let him start against Louisville or something. You don't burn the red shirt, because I don't think the bowl game counts for the red shirt burn either.
I don't think so anymore. I think they changed that. It doesn't count anymore.
Yeah. So that's my perspective is not necessarily to like burn him, but like, do you get him some reps, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you're giving, maybe Brock's more beat up and gives him in like another week to kind of, I don't know the answer to that question, but if you're going to give someone like Cutter a chance, I think you do it at Murray State. This weekend, you don't do it. You don't put anybody in there. Like
it didn't seem like Cutter was a big factor in their plan.
I mean, I'm going to put it this way. If they threw Cutter Boley in any significant minutes against Tennessee in Neyland at a night, like I would probably look sideways and be like,
I'm assuming you've already talked about the video they posted for their jersey reveal, the Tennessee one.
Oh yeah,
that was pretty sick. I can't lie. That's cool.
I don't know. I hate Tennessee in every aspect and every facet. Cool. I mean, like, this would be the most Kentucky thing in the world to go down and beat them after everyone checks out and nobody gives a shit.
We talked about it on the pregame show. If your offense isn't great, then you can lose to anybody. So I mean, you're not out of the game because they don't have.
Well, I think it's
typical offense that they usually do.
Well, I also think it's more so. I think it's more so. Does Kentucky's offense or defense care? Are they healthy? We haven't seen an injury report, right? Yeah, that's the key. Like,
not healthy at all.
Can this defense 4 weeks ago? Yes. This defense now, I don't know.
Brad White, they kind of asked about JJ and what they're looking for behind him, or De'Aaron and what they're looking for behind him, and he didn't say that they were available. So
I mean, there's also got to be a point where Dayon just may just go if he's banged up and just may sit out because he's going to be a top first-round draft pick. I mean,
yeah,
he stopped saving his body.
What did you think of Deion's game on Saturday?
I think he played really well in the first half.
Yeah, well, he got tired.
Yeah.
Looked like everybody got tired.
Yeah. I mean, look,
mentally tired more than
the defense. The defense has not been the biggest problem this season. The last 2 games have been very disappointing, but it doesn't really matter if you score 10 points. We did score 20. Well, offense didn't put 20 up against Florida, but we did hit the 20 mark because I talked about how many points we scored. It doesn't really freaking matter. It doesn't matter how good your fucking defense is. If you can't put up more than if you can't get to at least 28 to 30, you could have a great defense and you could still give up 24.
They're averaging 12.3 points per game in SEC play.
It's terrible. Like, this is making Scangarillo's offense look like a freaking gangbuster.
If I switch to this tab, can you still see me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was seeing.
Oh, man, there's nothing you can.
I'm just
do whatever you want.
Things now. I'm trying to figure out how this works. Yeah. Hamden was kind of getting berated.
So here's a question.
Yeah.
Do you think Kentucky goes another offensive coordinator? Obviously, we're assuming and thinking Stoops is going to stay because of the buyout and all this other stuff. I don't see that there's a world, unless Kentucky somehow breaks out and scores 35 or more in the next 4 games, every game, right? Or they somehow, like, look, if Kentucky was to do something psychotic and win the next 4, I think everyone's back, right? You pull that 7-5 out of your ass from this position, you beat Tennessee and Texas. Okay, I don't think anybody thinks it's going to happen. Bush has got. I think you got to get rid of him already. I mean, this has been a horrific experiment.
I just what is what do you do? Like, they kind of locked themselves. Isn't his contract kind of?
No, I think they can get out of that.
They can get out of it, but he can't. Yeah. I didn't know if it was both sides.
His contract is the problem. It's I didn't know
if Hamden had both sides are kind of locked in for 2-year kind of thing, because I know he's kind of locked in for 2, right? For his side, he can't really leave this year, money wise. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
Like the buyout is.
He's got a $1.5 million buyout. Oh wait, no, that was for Boise State. No, that was for Boise State. We actually paid Boise State $1.5 million for this.
We pay him less than that a year.
His salary is 1.35 in 2025, 1.45 in 2026.
You know what the buyout
signed
is,
a 3-year deal. I'm looking.
Oh yeah, okay. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, but we've talked about all we've talked about for the last like 3 years is how we have no continuity and none of the offense is different every year. And you get to a point where how much do we trust Stoops to make an offensive coordinator hire with the way the last
Only
like two,
four
two and a
SEC programs have paid an offensive coordinator. Like, think about this. We have Bush Hampton is the fourth highest paid offensive coordinator in the SEC for 12 points a game.
That's not good.
If Hampton leaves the school before November 30th, 2025, you would owe the school $1.5 million, increasing the chances he will stay at UK for at least 2 seasons.
Yeah, that seems
Cohen's buyout to leave UK was $250 per left on the season. Hamden's buyout drops to $250 per year remaining on his contract on December 1st, 2025. So I don't know what his buyout. I don't know what that would be.
So it's next year he can't, or it's hard to get out this year. It'd be
for
easy
him, not for us.
It'd be easy for him to get out next year. So yeah, it is. He's lucky, but like, I don't know. I don't know. I think it depends on. I think we'll find out Stoops' real feelings about this offseason, because
if it's not absolute fucking shit, I don't know what to say.
Well, I more meant why he thinks it's so bad. If he thinks it's the players, then if assuming he stays,
still on him.
Assuming he stays, if he thinks it's the players that are doing wrong, then Bush will be back. If he thinks that it's Bush that is not calling, like if Bush is actually this bad just at the calling plays and
it sure seems like it though, doesn't it? I mean, how many times I said this earlier before you got on. Have you ever seen a team in the SEC or even really just college football in general run this many GD QB draws or QB runs?
Gavin led the team in carries.
Yeah, that's stupid. That should never have happened because we started the game running the ball. Wilcox ran the ball well, Patterson, and then we go away from it. Like we do things well, and then it's just like, we can't do that anymore. It's like overthinking a drive. Like, and I use this analogy. Like a lot of people are going to play NCAA 25 listening to this, or they like. It seems like they're doing an all go or they're doing like a 5 or 10 yard stop out. Like there's like, where is the vertical passing game where you have options at all 3 levels of the field? Even if you have like Barryon and Dane going on go routes, why do you not have Macklin going on either a 10 to 15 yard slant to try and pull the safety, or a 10-yard slant, or running a vertical option to the field with a check down option for either the running back or tight end? Why?
There was one play, and at the beginning of the play, it was a play action. It was kind of in probably the third quarter. It might have been a Gavin drive, and they are in play action and they protect everybody. And at the beginning of the play, only Berrien goes out. I don't know if somebody leaks under him, and they throw the Berrien go, and I'm like, to me, that says they have no faith whatsoever in their offensive line. Like their plan, that play was like, Berrien, please be faster than the guy lined up across from you. We're going to protect everybody. We're going to give you a shot. Like we're going to see if you're faster than him.
It could be. I mean, is this all on the offensive line and the ability for the offensive line? Like, it looked like we have time. But the thing is that when we have time, it only seems like Dane Key catches the ball.
Well,
now, I will give him that. Dane Key seems like he's open a lot.
He is open a lot.
But Jamori Macklin had 1,100 yards receiving last year. I can't believe this guy sucks. Berrien Brown seems non-existent, except for Berrien Brown's had 2 big plays all season. He had
Imagine if he didn't catch the Ole Miss pass. Where would we be?
Oh God. We would have just jumped off a bridge. He had the catch against Ole Miss, and he had the kicker off return against Florida. Other than that, he's not done. Now, is that Berrien problem or is that a coaching problem? Because if you remember when we played Ole Miss, right, his freshman year, what do? We just gave him the damn ball. And we were throwing wide receiver screens. We should get him 10 touches a game if it works. Like, would you rather have Berrien on a wide receiver screen and end around and a jet sweep 10 times a game? Or would you rather have Wimsatt come in, take the ball, fake a handoff, and just run up the fucking middle 10 times? Which one would you rather do?
If those are my 2 options, I'm going to go with Berrien
all day.
I'm trying to pull up that game because he had I think he only had 2 catches, but one of them was the screen that he broke, and he had like 3
No,
returns
no, no,
where
no,
he
no,
got
no, no.
tackled.
There's multiple screens he broke because I think he broke one for a touchdown. He had one. He almost had a touchdown. And then he almost had. Didn't he have like a punt return or a kickoff return? And he also had like one where he got tripped up.
Returned one. He got tripped on one, and then I think
his own player.
Brought back or I think the one he returned got brought back for like a penalty.
Maybe, but he was unstoppable when in the open field. He was making big plays in that game. I mean, it was just.
Yeah, the problem is he has only done that like the 3 times that we've named, and so when it comes down to
a big game against, but he also had a big game. He had a big game against Georgia that year too. I think he had like 130 yards receiving,
and it was deep.
We're not giving him the ball, but we're not getting the ball to him. Even last year, he got the ball more, right? Like everybody was talking about Devin Leary and everything. Devin Leary looks like a great quarterback compared to what we're seeing. This team didn't average freaking. What do we average last year? 25 a game.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not, but we put 30 plus up in SEC games last year. We've not put 20 plus up against a Power 5 opponent this year. So, like, you don't want to throw like necessarily kids under the bus, but at the same time, guess what? These kids are now getting paid, so there's a little bit more things that I think you can have. Is the offensive line? Are they just dog shit? Is that the problem? Is Brock's problem that he's a first-year starter? We expected too much of him, and he's played against really good talent, and we don't have a good offensive line, and he just gets stuck on, and he's not reading through his progressions? Maybe. I mean, look, at the end of the day, he was a 5-star quarterback. He was talented, but he's only started 7 games, right? Like, he is only a 7. He is basically has the experience of a freshman. I mean, he hasn't played a ton.
Yeah, Bush was asked specifically, is it his progressions and getting stuck on one receiver from the beginning of the play? Is that Brock's problem, or is it something else? And he said it's the experience thing and this and that, but he did kind of slip in the middle that it was like, and getting progressions on the passing situations is something we need to work on with experience, kind of dropping it in there that that is kind of a thing that he struggles with, is getting through progressions. And it reminded me of a successful play, the Berrien pass to Ole Miss, where he said before the play, he's thinking in his mind, he saw the leverage and he said, I'm throwing it to Berrien no matter what. And it's like, well, it worked that time, but is that a good strategy? Because I don't feel like I hear pro quarterbacks, Brady on the broadcast and some of the other guys that we've heard talk, Manning and them on the Manning cast. They don't talk about staring at a receiver and saying they're going to throw her out before they see the leverage and see the concept that they're going to read first. And then the second option. And so they read one side, see if the one guy makes a decision. If that's covered, they look somewhere else, where Brock, it appeared, made the decision of where he was going to go before the play. And it worked there and everyone thought it was cool. But I wonder if that's a trend that we're seeing. And when it doesn't work, it looks kind of like the offense has looked the last 3 weeks. And as far as the offense goes, I think the offensive line is just really not good, especially at tackle. Like they don't have time. And the tight ends, I think the biggest problem with them not getting involved is that they have to block every play. Even on pass plays, they have to block. They, at minimum, are chipping, and it's delaying them a couple seconds that they still don't even have because they're getting pressure on the inside. The receivers are, Dane is really good. Macklin is good, but doesn't get the ball. And then I'm kind of starting to believe that Berrien may just be fast, if I'm being the most brutally honest that I can be. Running back injuries, and then Brock being young and getting stuck on projections. I think we had a range for what we thought each position group and what each player could be. And outside of maybe Demi and Dane, it kind of seems like everybody hit the lower end of what we thought was possible. And, when you're making preseason predictions, you wouldn't expect everybody to be on the low end of what you thought was possible.
No, you would have thought that there was going to be some significant progression.
Yeah,
especially with, obviously Harley Gilmore was injured, but also you bring in Jamari Macklin, Fred Ferrier, right? Like, so you got guys that you feel like you can do things with. And this has been.
They talked all offseason about Dane and Berrien getting so much stronger and more mature, and they look stronger and more mature, but Dane looks like he got better at football too.
Dane's been really good. But
Yeah.
also I feel like we
Dane is
only
really good.
throw to Dane.
So I found this. I think he had where did I write that down at? I think he had a 41% target share in the game, like 11 of 27 targets. Wandale averaged 39 his season, and we only threw to Wandale.
Yeah,
so
but
he had a higher
we also
target
had
share.
but we also had a hell of an offensive line and Chris Rodriguez in the backfield.
But when we're talking about only throwing to Dane, I'm saying like we only threw to Wandale that season, a little bit of Ali, but Dane had a higher target share in the last game than Wandale average. So we are throwing the ball to Dane a lot.
This is the ultimate problem. And if you would have asked this, I never would have guessed this. Auburn had 500 yards of total offense, 326 rushing yards. Like,
Jarquez Hunter had 291 by himself.
It's insane. And they only had Peyton Thorne only had 6 incompletions, and Kentucky only completed 12 of 27.
That's not good.
I mean,
it did seem like they threw the ball deep more, but it didn't seem like it was schemed up at all. It just kind of seemed like go routes on the outside and just see if you're better than.
Patterson had 6 rushes and averaged 6.3 yards a rush. Brock had 4, and Gavin had 9. It's unreal.
Patterson was the best running back.
Well, I mean, Patterson got more touches. Wilcox had a big run in the beginning. He was running hard and angry. And I think he had 1 or 2 big runs called back on a hold too.
That's true. Where are you looking at the stats? I think we might have a different box score.
Just pulled it up on Google.
Are you looking at the UK one? Okay, I was looking at the CBS one, and it looks mildly different. But
I mean, it still says that sucks.
Oh, there's no situation where it's going to look good. I'll tell you that.
No, none. I mean, this was absolutely horrendous in every single aspect of the game. I just don't. And we still got 4 games left. I mean, this could either go and there could be some hope, or my God, this could go really, really ugly.
Oh,
thankfully, we have basketball coming.
Please just be Louisville.
I mean, at least it would be a ha ha. We suck and you still can't beat us.
It would be funny. It would be really funny. I mean,
it would be great.
If we're not going to play football from Thanksgiving weekend through next August or September, then let's at least like have the ability to talk trash to Louisville on Twitter for 7 months, because that would be really boring. I've gotten used to liking tweets of how much Louisville sucks and potentially retweeting them. And I don't want to have to not do that, because that's how I spend some amount of time in the offseason.
I totally agree. Well, Jaden, it was good to jump in. We've hit a little bit over an hour, so I think it's probably a good place to wrap up. Tomorrow we'll talk basketball. We'll preview the game against Minnesota State. Jaden will be on for the whole show, so we'll get kind of into – I think Jaden knows a little bit more about Minnesota State than I do. We'll talk a lot more, obviously. We'll talk a lot more basketball tomorrow than we did today. Obviously, football's kind of like the big thorn in our ass right now. Talk more about – maybe there's some football developments that come out today. Who knows? Obviously, no matter what happens, kind of how I started the show, our thoughts and prayers are with the Stoops family. That's a terrible situation to lose a parent, no matter what goes on the field. But we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. And hopefully it's a little bit more of an upbeat show, because we're talking about a team that hopefully can be good. As I said early in the show, I really hope basketball doesn't suck in any facet, because if it does, this fan base is going to need like some medication.
Yeah. I would say it's a first-year coach. Don't put your whole happiness in the athletic program on a first-year coach pretty much ever.
I mean,
that's the situation we're in right now.
It should be fun, though. I mean, it should at least be fun.
No matter what, it will be fun.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think this team's going to go. We'll talk more basketball tomorrow, obviously, but I don't think this basketball team's going to go out and get a lot of like games where you watch through the half and you're just like, we're losing this game by 15. You could do that in the end of the calorie. I don't think you're going to see that a lot, but anyway. All right, man. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks.